So I wanted to make a video about Dead by Daylight. It has become one of my favorite games as I've played it more and more and more. The game has been out for a bit over 2 years. A friend of mine managed to convince me to buy the game during a sale, and then I started playing it around last year. At first I wasn't very interested at all, because, as you may know, maybe, when it comes to horror themed games, I'm a big cat. The gameplay is like a fancy version of Cops and Robbers, except here the cop is instead a blood-hungry killer and the robbers are survivors that needs to escape the killer. All 5 players are dropped into an arena of sorts. The 4 survivors play through a third-person view and they have a multitude of tasks to do around the map. Either to hinder the killer in some way or escape through a locked gate, since they cannot directly fight back against the monster's foe. To activate the gate, there are generators that the survivors need to repair. These take a while, but the more players on a generator, the faster it gets repaired. The survivors can also heal other players who's injured, destroy the killer's totems, sabotage hooks, and hide in lockers. If 1 or more generators are left unpowered and you're the only survivor left, you can also escape through a hatch, but be careful because the killer can grab you when you're trying to jump into it. The killer's objective is instead to, you guessed it, kill all the survivors, to please the so-called entity. The entity is an omnipotent being which uses the killers as tools to slaughter unlucky prey and further its own agendas. At least that's the gist of it. To complete this task, the bloodthirsty murderer needs to hang the unfortunate prey on dirty hooks placed around the map. 1 hit makes your prey bleed, 2 makes their legs bend, with a few exceptions. And then you can hook them. The killers don't have the same advantage when it comes to vision though, as they are limited to a first-person view. This makes it easier for the victims to try to hide or mind game the killer in some way. Although red marks will spawn if the survivors decide to run, and the killer may use these to find survivors more quickly. Sounds pretty simple on paper, but there are crazy strategies and mechanics to employ, which makes every game unique. The unique thing about the killers is that they all have a special ability that makes them all feel special and play differently. And the survivors may instead of that equip an item to further increase different functionalities. But there are also other things, like add-ons, perks and offerings that makes it all the more strategic. These perks changes the stats for both the killer and the survivors, or they could have some form of condition and effect. The combinations are almost endless, which makes it fun to experiment building each character in a certain way. And add-ons are simply add-ons, and they further enhance the killer's special power or the survivor's item capabilities. The last thing before jumping into a match is the offerings. They're one-shots, meaning they will always disappear after you've used them, and most of the time they give you additional blood points, which are used for expanding your blood web and leveling up. I started out by playing a few games with some friends, mostly because I had no clue what one should or should not do. I quickly learned to watch my surroundings and be vigilant if I didn't want to get an axe thrown into my head or a clown pop out through a window behind me. The scariest killer is without a doubt the hag, simply for her ability to jump scare you into oblivion with her traps.
Shack. Ah! What the fuck? That's well scary!
And so I struggled desperately to get good at the game, while doing my best to avoid the literal cold-blooded murderers. Which felt awfully similar to my junior high years, when my teacher came walking down the hall and my assignment wasn't done yet. In due time I learned optimal strategies, when to help other survivors and when to get the fuck out of there. I only played survivor in the beginning, dreading to even try being the killer for once. Until I got a mission to trap 4 poor bastards, which I did. And I've never felt such thrill as when I hooked the last Claudette on the hook, seeing the rusty metal being driven through her dainty shoulder, accompanied by her chilling scream. Sweet melody. This was the point where I really got interested in the game and began playing more and more by myself also. Through almost no effort I climbed to rank 5 with Killer and I think 6 with Survivor. The gameplay loop is simply addicting, and whether you outplay someone while being the killer or when playing as a survivor, it feels amazing. This is what keeps me coming back, even after a heavy loss. New killers and new maps is frequently being added to the game, making it even less monotonous. These maps often have at least 2 variations of them, which encourages players to learn the layout. Knowing where generators or pallets are can save your life. And when you rise through the ranks, the skill of survivors and killers also rise, and the games can be extremely tight or tough, which is when the game runs in the highest gear, when it's the most fun. The microtransaction side is also one I like to praise. It's nothing like EA or the like, and it has a more okay cost, in my opinion. New killers or new survivors often cost $5, and if you buy them in a pack you get them a bit cheaper often. And then we have a few customization options and stuff, but it doesn't change the core gameplay in any way, they're just cosmetics. So is the game perfect? No, exactly like every other game, it has its flaws. It sometimes have terrible connection due to it being peer-to-peer connection during matches. There's clear cheating every now and then, the matchmaking can be ridiculous, and it's not fun having to kill the process when the game hangs itself during the loading screen. So I fully understand everyone's criticism of it so far. Although servers are coming this summer, it's also many players who've already quit because of its problems, which is a shame. Hopefully, the game will have a surge of players after they've added servers, and I think it really deserves it. The community is wonderful in some cases, terrible in some, but it's all worth it when you get that perfect game where everyone's having fun, a match of skill and camaraderie. Those are the games that sticks in your mind and becomes a memory. Something you look back to and think about the great times that were had. Dead by Daylight is, simply put, terrifyingly awesome.